Not a communist. I think Mr. Goldwater is a fake. I think he is a demagogue, and it seems real peculiar to me that with the left wing and the Communist Party being led by so many Jewish people, we also have to have a Jewish man leading the right wing. It seems to me there ought to be somebody out of the 150 million white Christian Americans to lead the right wing. I think he's sent over, like Eisenhower was, from the left wing to lead the right wing.
Who would you like to see in a presidential ticket, Mr. Rockwell?
Douglas MacArthur.
And who would be vice president?
Well, I hadn't thought about that. Maybe myself. The only one that I can think of that I would vote for is Douglas MacArthur.
President Kennedy, what was your opinion of him?
Well, I don't think that two bullets can make a saint out of a man who was a bad man before. I despise the Southern hypocrites who are now all lugubriously groaning and moaning what a great man he was. I think Kennedy was a terrible president. However, I'm disgraced to think that the man could be shot in our country any more than I would care to be shot here.
Well, how do you think your speech will be received here at Hofstra this afternoon?
Well, I think people are too afraid to react normally. I think that they will tend to react the way they think people should react. So I think that you will get a false reaction, pretty much.
Are you in favor of the school boycott, sir?
No, I'm not. I think it's illegal. I think it's truancy is what it is.
How many of your associates came with you?
I don't remember the exact date. It was about 2 months ago. The students asked me not to reveal when I would speak, and I kept that pledge.
Mr. Rockwell, is it true that your topic this afternoon will be freedom of speech?
Yes, sir, it is. That will be the topic, and I'm going to stick to it.
Whose idea was it for you not to appear in uniform, Mr. Rockwell?
I never appear in uniform. I am not here to agitate. When I go out in the streets and I have to reach masses of people, I use agitational methods. I am here to discuss philosophical ideas and not to agitate, and I don't want to embarrass the people that were good enough to invite me.
Why do you feel at times it is necessary to agitate?
Because masses of people are unable to get intellectual ideas over in a street kind of meeting. You have to use agitational methods. The Negroes use them. The boycott, for instance, is an agitational method. It isn't an intellectual method. And that's the same type of methods that I have to use myself.
Mr. Rockwell, do you think the movement is growing stronger or weaker or static?
I think that personnel-wise we're growing weaker because we're growing smaller. The pressure is on us more all the time, and it is scaring some of my people out. On the other hand, the quality is going up. I am getting a higher and higher level of executive in the organization, and I am quite sure that we will be able to make our goal of election in Virginia by 1965.
Mr. Rockwell, when you speak of pressure, everybody has the same question. Where does the pressure come from?
This is what I have promised not to go into here at Hofstra, and I'm not going to begin. I'm sure you all know the answer to that.
Mr. Rockwell, where does your group's money come from?
We have very little money. Right now in my pocket I have about $33, and I'm informed that I will be arrested, whether or not I go into New York City, and I have no money for bail and no money for a lawyer.
Who have you been informed you'd be arrested by, whether or not you
I
went to New York
cannot,
City?
I cannot give you that information. I have absolutely, or what should be reliable information from the most reliable possible source that I will be arrested. I expected to be arrested even when I got here.
Arrested by
New
whom?
York City?
This I can't tell you. My information is reliable, however, I do believe.
Do you have a prepared speech
By
with
what
you?
vehicle you got here?
No, sir, I can't, because if I'm not arrested, I got to get back out unless I stay on Long Island the rest of my life.
How do you earn a living, Mr. Rockwell?
I don't. We damn near starve most of the time. We sell our literature, we get contributions, but we are the poorest right-wing organization in the world. We exist mostly on guts and bluff.
Have you received any encouragement from the Republican Party that you could be nominated?
Well, all I'd have to do to ruin a lot of Republicans is say yes. No, sir, I have received no encouragement from any political party whatsoever, and almost everybody universally feels that he has to disclaim me in order to gain the approbation of the people himself.
You called Senator Barry Goldwater a communist. Is that correct?
Yes, I am, sir, and I admire their guts and courage. A lot of people think I'm anti-Jewish and anti-Semitic. This is a lot of baloney. In my speech, I shall bring that out, that this is simply not true. One of my top men in California, until they put him in jail recently, is Leonard Holstein, a Jew. And I think he's one of the finest young men I ever met.
Why was he put in jail, Mr. Rockwell?
He was put in jail because he tried to picket an Israeli bond session. And he was attacked by about 5,000 Jewish people. And as usual, just like the warrant in New York charges me with disorderly conduct for being attacked, they're in jail. Certainly, I spoke before 11,000 Negroes in Chicago with the black Muslims. And the reaction was very, very favorable. Yes, the black nationalists in Harlem. There's a lot of Negroes that agree with me. I brought only 2 that will be with me and 1 driver. I brought my 2 littlest men, the littlest men I could find so nobody could... Well, they're mighty little. I think they're over there in a corner or someplace around here. I picked the littlest men I could find so nobody could accuse me of trying to bully anybody.
Mr. Rockwell, how does it feel to you to be in the position of having a good number of police officers as part of a captive audience for you this afternoon?
This is not a captive audience. This audience has chosen to be an audience. I didn't capture them. They have every right to get away if they want, and they can all walk out in the middle of it and leave me if they wish. I am here at the risk of my life and liberty, and as I say, I expect to go to jail for this.
But there is so much security here. I mean, there are about 200 police.
I've stayed out of New York for almost 4 years on account of that warrant because I have no money for bail. And just like they just found a Nazi in Germany hung over there, let me say right now, I have no intention of committing suicide this afternoon.
What was your
Mr. Rockwell, it's estimated there's about 200 policemen here to protect you today. What's your feeling on this? Are you pleased? Or does it...
I'm proud. I'm proud of the fact that this country, there is still enough liberty here for a dissenting idea, so that regardless of the fact that I think the population here is largely Jewish, apparently the police department is neutral, and it is neither for me nor against me. They are simply here to preserve law and order, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm part of that country. My first action would be to call a conventional, constitutional convention in order to repeal the amendment that tries to make Americans out of Negroes. I don't think that you could make Chinamen out of them by passing a law, and I don't think they've been made into Americans. We would call a constitutional convention and pass some amendments which would make our program legal. I will not violate the Constitution.
How about the Bill of Rights, sir?
I believe in the Bill of Rights. As I will speak to the students upstairs, I believe so much in the Bill of Rights that we have a provision in our program for a special network of free opinion to make available to all citizens, rather than just the ones who are amenable to the media.
Do you consider the Negro a citizen?
They are now, of course. I think I disagree with the Southern approach that they should be prevented from voting and beaten, and the Ku Klux Klan approach. I think that you should, in other words, go along with the law, but I think the law should be changed.
What is your ancestry, Mr. Rockwell? You're referring to the Negro...
Well, if you, my ancestry is 100% white. I don't know how you want to call it. Well, I haven't looked that far back. I might have had a couple of apes way back there, but I don't know how far back. I'd have to look to find them. I would say that I am of German, French, English, and Scotch ancestry.
Mr. Rockwell, are you a Christian?
No, sir, I'm an agnostic.
Why?
I'm an agnostic because I think that it's conceited for any person to say, I have examined the universe and only I have the right idea. I understand how things are up there. And I think it's just as conceited to say I've examined the entire universe and there's nothing up there. I think you can't say either way. I simply say I don't know. I believe in a supreme being, but I don't know what it is or who he is. I don't think we can understand it.
Mr. Rockwell, you commented on Goldwater. Would you like to comment on Mr. Rockefeller and Mr. Johnson?
Well, I think Mr. Rockefeller and Mr. Johnson are cut out of the same cloth, and I would want no part of them under any circumstances. There's a chance that Mr. Goldwater might be all right, but I doubt it. The other two, I think, are right out of the same cloth as Franklin Roosevelt, for instance. Weight? Very little. I'm realistic enough to realize that nobody thinks I can get elected and people aren't going to waste their votes. But I had to start someplace. I have started in New Hampshire. I'm on the ballot, and I think that I will be able to get some votes. In Virginia, pardon me?
Campaign New Hampshire.
I am on the ballot there. I'm on the Democratic ballot, me and President Johnson.
How many are in your movement, sir?
How many people in it?
Right.
Well, there is only about 700 people, hardcore people, who will actually come to such a thing as this with me. However, we have about 12,000 people who are supporters, friends, correspondents, and so forth.
And what state is your strongest opponent, you feel?
Virginia.
What about New Hampshire support? Aren't you fairly well liked up there?
I was amazed when I got up to New Hampshire. The only unpleasant incident I had in New Hampshire was at a general store where an old guy sitting by a stove started to cuss me out and said, "You damn New York millionaires." I said, wait a minute. He thought I was Rockefeller. And as soon as I said, "Your name is Rockwell," he said, "Oh, all right," and shook my hands.
Did he know who you were?
Oh, yes, sir.
I wonder
He heard about it.
we've got to get Mr. Rockwell up there now. Before we break, I wonder if Robert Van Lira was the president of our student council.
Next voice here is Robert Van Lira, president of the Hofstra Student Council.
Van Lira, L-A-R-O-T. The gentleman has got to say, because just from the few words that I heard so far, I can see that I am diametrically or advocate any policy of hate or racism in any form. Instead, it is an attempt to continue to bring into proper focus before our student body the issues of contemporary.
Let me say that I agree with almost everything the dean said. I have a couple of reservations, but on most cases, I agree heartily with what he says. I intend to be as careful as possible not to abuse this opportunity. I realize that I'm a guest here, and that it has cost the university and the students, Mr. Van Lira, the dean, and all the other people a good bit of, probably a lot of sleep in order to get me here, and I'm very grateful. I realize that I cannot convert anybody here today, and I'm not going to try to do it. Some of the things that you have heard in the press, radio, and TV, which is why I am so grateful to be here. It is constantly said, for instance, that I am anti-Negro. Well, my views coincide almost exactly with those of Malcolm X, a Negro. It's very hard for me to see how you can say that Malcolm X is anti-Negro. I can go into other subjects, but I'm going to let them go, rather than cause any difficulty. Now, I have been assured by a source which is unimpeachable that this visit today will cost me an arrest. And I have no money for bail or lawyers, and even though it has been said that I don't go into New York City, I have been assured that I will be arrested. I expected that to be arrested even before I spoke. As I told you, I have been assured that I will be arrested, and I know that I'm
and rushed to a hospital that is in a predominantly Negro area. It is essential that you obtain a transfusion of whole blood. The only blood available is blood given occasion. Would you let this blood pass through your circulatory system, this blood from a Negro, in order to preserve your life?
I am 100% a realist, ladies and gentlemen. I believe I would accept blood from Sammy Davis Jr.
And part B, if the Jews are running the country as you claim, don't you think they're doing a fine job of it?
Part A, all friends in the world. Which do you think is the best? Well, obviously, if I said any other country in America, I would be in bad shape here, but I don't have to. This obviously is the greatest country. I have been many times tempted to go elsewhere where I understand they're more racist and so forth like South Africa. This is the best country. This has the best form of government, and I believe that the American constitutional limited republic is the greatest form of government. I believe it should be run by leaders, not demagogues, which is what we have. But I believe that the American constitutional republic is the greatest form of government in the world. Best go with me between the complete left of anarchy and the complete right of tyranny. Part B, Jews who run the country as you claim, don't you think they are doing a fine job? And more power to them. Well, I want to say this. If the Jews were doing such a fine job of running the country, how come Mr. Oswald just shot our president? He wouldn't have done that in my country. Would have been alive.
I think we've got time for just one more question. What is the difference between National Socialism and communism besides variation of approach to racial issues?
The basic difference between National Socialism and communism outside of race, because race is the main thing. The basic other variation is we do not believe in class warfare. We believe in just the opposite. I believe we must have unity. I think our people have been splintered enough into the Yankees and the Confederates and Catholics and Protestants and South and North and all these various divisions. I think that our great white Christian majority should be united. And the other, of course, major difference that you all know is atheism. They're not atheists.
What did you think of Mr. Rockwell's speech?
I was unmoved. I felt that he had nothing concrete to say, and I could punch holes through his statements.
Were you surprised at the lack of emotion or rabble-rousing in it?
Well, no, because we have been preached to and lectured to and told to restrain ourselves on this issue.
I mean, the content of his speech. Were you surprised at the lack of rabble-rousing?
No, I wasn't. I felt that he would contain himself to the topic of freedom of speech.
Do you still think he should have been allowed to speak?
Yes, I do. As academic freedom and intellectual curiosity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, why don't you start off tight on each one and then draw back if you want. What did you think of Mr. Rockwell's speech?
I thought it was very interesting, and I was unmoved completely. I didn't think he really said much at all. He just I think he tried to build his image on his war record and to try to hit our emotions, but he didn't seem to do anything to me at all.
Do you think the college made the right move in allowing him to speak here?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I think we proved our point by the fact of the way the students behaved, not showing any emotion at all, which I thought was excellent. And I did think one thing was good in his speech, his remark about Sammy Davis Jr., which I thought was quite amusing.
Were you surprised at the reaction of the students to the speech?
No, I wasn't, because I don't think he really said anything to actually rouse us up. But we were all right.
Thank you.
Right.
Still rolling? What did you think of the speech?
I thought it was very educational and very enlightening.
In what respects?
In what respects? Well, I've heard a little bit on television and read a little bit in the newspapers about what he's done and what he's said, and I found that he's not a rabble-rouser. Well, he doesn't have to be. And if one looks for him, one can find many, many logical flaws in his statements, and he's quite a hypocrite when you come down to it.
Do you think he should have been allowed to speak here, or are you glad the university let him?
Oh, definitely. It's quite an educational asset to be able to invite any person you want to hear and be able to learn about their views.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your reaction to his speech?
Well, I thought his speech was very disappointing in the sense that at various points he completely disregarded the logical argument, and I found a tremendous amount of irrationalities in his statements. I don't think the statements he made could have held up in an argument.
Do you think he should have been allowed to speak?
Well, I think that the student council might have made a wiser choice in not letting him speak, because in relation to the cost of his speech to the university and to the student body. But I feel that once he made a speech, that the administration was right in letting him speak.
Okay, the student reaction was calm, don't you think?
Yes, I think it was calm, and I don't think Rockwell would use, as he said himself, he doesn't use the same approach here as he'd use out in the streets. And I think it was pretty clever manipulating on his part as far as...
Surprised at his approach here?
I was, yes. I expected to hear something more violent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was your reaction to the speech?
Well, I thought it was a very important one, very educational one for everybody. His discussion of emotional engineering is actually his divulging of his secret of talking to people is something we can all take to heart and something we can all think about, because if people can be gotten over like this, then this is something to reckon with. This is not just a guerrilla who spouts hate, but this is a very devilishly clever man, and a man who knows how to get what he wants.
Are you pleased or satisfied that the university let him speak?
I'm more than satisfied. I'm very happy about it. I follow the controversy very closely, and I'm very glad it turned out the way it did. I think it's much more beneficial that everyone heard him than that he remained a mystery.
Thank you. One more? Yeah.
White Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
All right, hold on. You say you're a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant?
Yes,
What do
and
you think of the speech?
I think Mr. Rockwell did us all a great favor today in that he told us, in his own terms, how it was possible for a man to win the masses to his way of thinking. In other words, this is the same thing that Hitler did in Germany. He won the masses to his way of thinking.
Do you think anyone here was swayed?
I don't think so. I think we were all able to weed out the propaganda and so forth in Mr. Rockwell's speech. And actually, he told us that this is the way that he's winning the masses, and that we should all come along and be part of the masses and give in to his emotional method of
Were you surprised at the lack of rabble-rousing content in this speech?
I think he did that purposely, in that he knew a lot of us had come to see a hate monger, a terrible man, and he wanted to show us, as he said many times, how patriotic he was, how nationalistic he was, that he was just one of the boys, he was one of us, and we were all one big family that he was going to help out in the future.
Was it a good thing for the university to let him speak?
Although we took a pretty big risk in something going wrong, some idiot, going off, I think it was in that it showed that such a thing can happen, such a thing can take place in an orderly manner, that people can come here and view his views, without getting excited emotionally, and just take him for what he is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good, Al. How many feet there? 398.